Hey, everybody. So, for all intents and purposes, today is day 19 of a month of letting go. This week, as you know, is a conversation about why letting go is so hard. Yesterday, we spoke a bit about the fact that it just hurts. We don't want to do it. The reason we held on to these things because we tried to push them away because we didn't want to feel them, which is so ironic because that's how we hold on to them. But our subconscious mind keeps all these experiences and emotions and beliefs and patterns, and these things shape our behaviors and our responses without us even knowing, which is one of the reasons it's so tough to let them go, because we're like, what, why am I doing this? And you have to go in and dig deep. So these are, you know, different emotional blockages that we held on to in the past, and they've formed different patterns to create our psyche, and we have different attachments because of them, and because we're not conscious of them, these can influence us in powerful ways, but even subtle. Although when you see some of them, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. So understanding how the subconscious kind of comes into play and why it makes things difficult to let go is important, because then we can go for a deep dive and find those things and allow them to leave our emotional environment. So these things that we're holding on to, they're usually significant emotional events or repetitive patterns that become ingrained in our subconscious, and we kind of start trying to protect ourselves from it. So I'm sure you guys have your share of traumatic small t events, and maybe even some big T traumatic events, and patterns that you have developed that are stuck in there. And people have different things. Personally, I have collected in the past a ton of shit and stuck it down there, and that's what I'm working on. So let me see, what is a good example of a frequently held. Sorry, stop. Things keep buzzing at me. Really, it's my fault. I should really change the settings on my notifications. But let's just say, I was thought of as an annoyance when I was a kid, and don't tell my mother this, but it was very clear. And as I developed and grew, I grew to think that there's something wrong with me. And it's really hard to let go of that stuff. I'm working on it, but that's the sort of thing that messes with you. There's plenty of times where my father, any of my friends would be nearby and he would just humiliate me. It was awful. And those things get to you. They get in there. And then there's religious stuff that gets stuck in there, and you're like, oh shit, especially if you're Catholic. And that's what I was. Some ideas that aren't necessarily great for you. I got a nice big shit right there. How pleasant. Anyway, I took on, so with the annoyance thing, I became a very, very, in a way, cautious person. I wanted to be the best at everything. I didn't like it if I really tried to overcompensate for the feeling that there was something wrong with me. And I the funny thing is, I recognized that it wasn't a good thing when I was a kid, and I rebelled against it. But then when I became an adult, it doesn't matter how much I recognized it and I rebelled against it as a kid, it's in there. And it messed things up. So when we kind of understand, though, that this attachment, this blockage that I have, it's there to protect me, because the idea of being wrong or being annoying or being an embarrassment, it's dangerous in my psyche. So my psyche kind of went into overdrive, and did its best to protect me from everything that could make me think I'm bad. But that resulted in looking at everything as though I were doing something, but everything, judging everything I did. Judging, and that is not healthy. It does not do you any good whatsoever. So even though I knew it wasn't good and I rebelled against it and I was confident in my selfdom, and knew what I wanted to do and went out there and got it for the first part of my life, when I came close to reaping the benefits of the efforts that I was putting into my career, I fucked it all up. And that in part is because I didn't think I deserved it. And that's where that comes from too. So getting that screaming voice that's your own voice in your ear telling you how wrong you are all the time, not a good thing. But again, even though you have this, you or me or whoever might have the critic, right? We all know the critic screaming in our ear about what a terrible person we are and how horrible we can't do anything and blah, blah, blah. Believe it or not, that voice is trying to protect you or me. It's not doing a great job. It's not useful. But at one point, it did serve a purpose, which was to keep me away from anything that might make other people in my life think that I'm annoying or I'm wrong or anything like that. Judge everything. Where is it coming from next? That was another thing. People in my house were explosive with anger, all of them, and you just never knew. I mean, you detected patterns. There were patterns you could see where you're like, but you just never knew where it was coming from next. And I was a sensitive kid, and that taught me to look around and think that I'm bad and I'm doing something wrong at all times. So that comes from there. And while it did protect me, or it tried to, it went into, like, it went crazy. And it ruined what you could call ruined my life. It caused a lot of pain. It caused a lot of, I really gotta change those notifications, Jesus. It caused a lot of pain. It caused a lot of destructive, sabotaging behavior. It influenced all my life choices, and it fucked with my ability to do work. And so these things aren't relevant anymore. But when we recognize that it is trying to protect us, and this is frustrating, we can have a bit more understanding and grace with it. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So the first step really is becoming aware of these patterns, and it's hard to do because they're subconscious. And the way you do this, there's several ways, but mindfulness, paying attention to your thoughts and your feelings, what's going on, meditation, where you sit and you just look at your thoughts and your feelings, and just watch them. Another way to do it is journaling, which is it's like a reflective a reflective pattern, right? It is a reflective, it causes us to self-reflect. And journaling is a great example of that. It really is. You really have to be thinking. You have to be thinking when you're writing, because you don't just blah, 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 blah. You have to write actual words, and you have to find the right word, and you have to understand it, and you will, because it's very, very useful. But you might also find when you're doing this, emotional reactions occur that you don't expect. A lot of times you'll get angry, or one can get angry as one is doing this work. And that is in reaction to so many things. But just know when it happens that that's part of the process. It's frustrating, but you can see it and you're like, oh, fuck. And even if you have to walk away, you know, like, hey, look, this is actually a good thing, because it means that I am digging this shit up and letting, and you know, I'm finding it, I'm doing the work. So when we become aware of these things, especially, journaling, guys, really, 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 you can dig some stuff up that way. You have to finish the thought. I mean, I know I say that a lot about journaling, but you can, I don't know about you, my mind goes like this a lot of the times, right? And even if I'm thinking, it can just go off. And if I don't finish the thought, and then it's not written down, so I might forget it. But journaling will get it down. It gets it into your brain in a different way than it does if you're thinking about it or even speaking about it. And it forces you to go from point A to point B and to finish your thoughts. So I can't recommend that enough. But that will help you in identifying these things, because things come out when you write that you don't even know are in there. The process is gradual. Don't think it's going to happen overnight. I've been working on this for years. I know people who've been working on this for years. And, you know, it's actually a lifelong thing. And the good news is you start seeing results relatively quickly. I mean, it's not, but you'll start feeling better. It doesn't change overnight, though. And releasing these things requires patience and consistent practice. Every 5 seconds, like, okay, no, I'm going to, like, you got to keep bringing yourself back to it. Keep bringing yourself back to it. You're not going to want to do it, especially at the beginning. Like, especially at the beginning, you're really not going to want to do it. But when you say, okay, that's fine. I know that I'm not going to want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And you keep, and sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't, but just keep going. So what does that say? You got to have patience. You got to have patience with yourself. It's a process. It's a long process. So, you know, you might want to really, like we've discussed, self-awareness and mindfulness to a degree, quite a degree. I mean, we had months devoted to it. But when you are paying attention to what you're thinking and feeling, ask yourself why you're thinking or feeling that thing. You know, kind of just think about, like, okay, what's the past? I don't know. I think the most important thing is the most important thing is being aware of it and relaxing the areas in my body that are tense when it thinks of it. But a lot of times, insight into the problem you're having will make it much easier to release. You can always do some guided meditation. We've got some good ones from Lauren Pichardo. And yeah, so take a look, check yourself out, find yourself fascinating. I find myself fascinating to a degree that maybe not as healthy, but I'm fascinated by myself. So I enjoy thinking about myself and my reactions and why is this happening? Why is that happening? How can I fix this? So yeah, so that's today's video. And I'm just gonna remind you guys that even if you're self-conscious, your subconscious is really, really bugging you and you don't know why, you can always choose to have a grateful day.